Welcome to session 2 of our series called Rescue People Do Life Together. As we looked at life groups, one of the verses we really honed in on was Acts 2 verses 42 through 47. And in that we saw 5 behaviors, 5 activities, 5 purposes of the church that we see lived out in community life. And so for the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a look at each of those purposes a little bit deeper and talk about how those purposes are lived out in our life groups. So the first purpose we're going to be talking about this week is worship. And we define worship as learning to love God. Oftentimes when we think about worship, our minds tend to go to talking about music. And that is definitely an aspect of worship. But we believe worship, especially in community life, is much broader than that. What does worship look like in your groups? What are some of the different ways that you've seen worship lived out in your group?
Yeah, I think our group, what we like to do is define worship first. And like you said, most people go to music or worship in the traditional sense, but it's really anything that you're doing to show adoration to God or show your gratefulness to God. And so that could be praying for one another, that could be reading the Bible together, that could be telling a story and just kind of pointing out where you see God's fingerprints in your life. And so I think any of those things, anytime we're together and doing those things, is an act of worship.
I know one way that I see worship in our group is 2 other moms in my group. We all have babies that have turned 2 this year. And we celebrated their birthdays together, celebrating 2 years that God has allowed us to, allowed them to be in our lives. And it was just so fun to celebrate all together. Our whole group came and celebrated their birthday together, and that was a fun way of just bringing all of us together and just thanking God for another year. So
yeah, and it's cool seeing too the different people in our groups that have different gifts, different skill sets, and ways that they're bringing that in, and we're just spoiled with incredible group people. And many of you are familiar with Gretchen DeMembrian, that just the ability to write these liturgies that really help keep us grounded in whatever season's coming or that we're entering into, being very mindful and being very present, not only with each other, but being present with God in those moments. And so really seeing the worship in different forms it's really fun. It's really encouraging.
You know, for us, a lot of times what we'll do is we're blessed to have 3 people within our group that has boats. So a lot of times it won't even be at a set group time, but it's not uncommon to get a text, around the end of the day. It's like, hey, do you guys want to jump on the boat and go watch the sunset? And we just encourage one another, out there in God's creation. It really gives us an appreciation for what he's done, but it reminds us of how big he is and just the importance of spending time together. But when we're out on that boat, it's like the whole world disappears and it's just us and God, and we pray for one another. We look at what he's created, and it's a great time of encouragement.
I love that, getting out in nature. And I know y'all have also done a lot of like group bonfires right there by the lake. And of course, in your group, you are gifted with the people who can play music and sing. And I love that you talked about being in nature and celebrating God's creation. What are some other ways groups can worship together?
I think the She event was a good example, at least for our group. We are a group of young women, women only in our group. And so getting to go to things like the She event together and have that time where we don't have anyone who's responsible for doing the pouring into people. We just get to soak it all up and be a part of each other's lives and see each other worship in that way. It definitely was a filling event for all of us.
I think ours, just coming and being able to sit with one another on a Sunday. We do life together on, mostly, we do it regularly during the week and Mondays, but Sundays, we come together and just spend time with one another. We pray with each other in the hallways. I think that's just a way that we kind of worship throughout the week together. So,
I think for us, it's being mindful and aware of the journeys that we're all on together. It's neat just learning from one another and watching how other people's rhythms and habits, just how they walk through their life, and just being able to learn from that, to be able to see that and to be able to ask questions and vice versa, that we all we are on this journey, and what does it look like to devote our time to our Heavenly Father? It's, man, in the midst of chaos, it's difficult at times, but to see how we spurn one another on, it's super helpful.
Well, I think that is a great kind of jumping off point into our next purpose that we're going to talk about today, which is discipleship. And we define that as learning to become like Jesus. And oftentimes, again, I think we have a kind of a narrow picture of what it means to do discipleship. Oftentimes, we associate discipleship with the study we do as a group together. But one of the things you said that I think helps us see that bigger picture is that discipleship can be and should be walking through life together and modeling what it means to follow Jesus for one another. You talked about, both of you talked about praying for one another as part of your weekly rhythms. Share a little bit more about how you see discipleship played out in your group.
No, I mean, I'll say I'm not the dad and husband that I am now if it's not for the guys in our life group. Just to have that ability to, like, how's this working for you? How's this going for you? How is this really going? And to be able to bounce the ideas and to be able to then ask, like, how's your heart in that too? Like, how does walking through that start to affect you? And being able to see and again, walk through that knowing this isn't just me by myself. This isn't just them by themselves. Like, this is a collective effort that it takes both of us to ultimately all of us to become better. And
I will say one thing I think that's neat about our group too is we all, like, we have how many 5 and under, like
40,000. No,
no, we're like 12
Yeah.
that are under the age of 5, and like raising disciples in our homes. Like, we get to encourage one another. It's like, it's okay if that one's climbing the stairs every day. Like, as long as you're being patient with them. Like, you know, there's moments where, like, I had one that said, when am I supposed to start praying with my child? And being able to encourage, like, our prayers don't look the same when they're 3. You know, our prayers are gonna age over time, and getting to walk that with each other. They're encouraging us and we're encouraging them, and I just think that was just one way that we are walking this life together. So
For us, it's a great opportunity when we come together each week. Without fail, somebody's having a rough week. Somebody is dealing with something, and we continue to point people and point each other back to Jesus and hold each other accountable. If one of us is a little out of line with, you know, we're frustrated at work or with our kids or something like that, and it's a great way because we've all earned the relationship capital and equity within each other to be able to speak that truth, to go, hey, I think you might be a little off here, and this is why, and let's, you know, point them back to Jesus. And we do that out of love for one another, and it never fails. You know, it's like, hey, thanks for taking the blinders off my eyes for me and let me see that. And it's not very common that you have that kind of space where you can do that with people.
I think that reminds me, like, when we did this study on the temperaments as a group, I think one that I'll never forget is our group went around and we talked to our spouses in front of everyone and shared, like, hey, this is, as I'm tempered, how I have a behavior temper this way, this is what affects me when you do this. And we went back and forth at each other, and we all went around the room. And I think, like it
so scary.
It was scary. But everybody was so truthful in those moments. And, like, not only did we be encouraged and go, we're not alone in that. Yeah. It was a moment that it was like, oh, like, I can encourage you on this too. Like, we just, I don't know, it's just being honest with one another and it being a safe place in our home. Like, it's just a special moment. I think it grew all of us. We're a lot closer because of that. So,
Mackenzie, you have said something as we were talking off camera about discipleship that I think is important to draw out with the connection between discipleship and accountability.
Yes. So for a group of young women, accountability can be really hard because when you look into society, a lot of those things are not godly things. whether that be through social media or just what you hear on the day-to-day. Women, our group ranges, I think our youngest now is 19 and I'm our oldest at 27. And being able to come into a space where, whether it's as a group or individuals, like when someone starts to veer off the path, kind of like you said, to be able to step in and say, hey, like, let's do a quick check-in. Like, is this of God or is this of the world? Like, which one are we following here? And yes, I'm going to tell you one way or the other what my opinion is, but like, it's ultimately on you to make those decisions. But just to have people who want to speak that kind of truth into your life and tell you when you're in the wrong, because in our society, that's not what it is. We're going to accept you just as you are. We're going to accept you and love you regardless of what you have going on or what your choices are. And while, yes, that's important, like, you need to have people who can steer you right.
Yeah, I mean, discipleship, relationship has to come before discipleship.
Correct.
And when you're in that small group, discipleship is not just an event. Like, I love She and Rise Up in these events, but true discipleship is messy and it happens over time. And in the confines of a small group of trusted people that you've earned, a little bit of relationship equity with, and you've shared life, the ups and downs, the tears, the laughter, the highs and lows, it's a lot easier to lean in and really, as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another. But it happens over the course of time, and making that investment to be there every week. Consistency is key. That's one of the things in our group. We make every effort to prioritize that each week. And if we're a kid, like if somebody misses 2 weeks in a row, it's like, all right, we're going to meet tonight and the tribal council will let you know if you've been voted off the island. No. But we just want people to know that this is important to be here every week. So you're not just showing up and missed 4 weeks and somebody's walked through something major.
Well, I think you mentioned the importance of relationship in discipleship, and that's a perfect kind of cue for our third purpose that we're going to be talking about today, which is fellowship. And oftentimes we think of fellowship as those fun times, but really, as we look at fellowship, we define it as learning to love others. And it's easy to love people in the fun times, but you also learn to love others in the hard times as well. And so as we look at fellowship, that is how those relationships are formed in those highs and lows of life. So wanted to just share some stories of times you've seen fellowship grow in your group.
I think ours have obviously come in the fun times. I mean, dinner, bowling, going out, hanging out, coming in and doing puzzles, whatever. But I think a lot of that growth comes in times of frustration. We are a group of women, so there's plenty of those.
There's drama in your group?
No, I didn't use that word.
Frustration.
I mean, there's always going to be things that we don't agree on, and that's going to be any group. But there's always those, so-and-so said this and they make me upset. And so, like, walking through those moments and being able to either be like, hey, you need to face this head on, you got to go talk to him. Or just walk another group member through, I understand why you're frustrated, but you also have to understand you grew up different. Your brain works different. Like, there's going to be those moments, and getting to watch those two group members interact and kind of come back together, you can see that bond growing stronger after they've had those hard conversations. And I think that's one of the best things, that we've had a really strong group now for over a year, and regardless of those upset times, like, we've always come back together just fine.
When I think of fellowship, I think of lots of fun because, but I think of one thing like trunk or treat that's coming up. Like, we did trunk or treat together, but it was fellowship. But like, there were moments where we got to encourage each other in those moments. Like, hey, I know this is crazy. It's dark. There's a lot of people. Like, we're having fun together. Let's, I felt like we were like all hands on deck. Like, we got to all parent each other. And honestly, like, one of my most favorite moments is we have a single mom with 2 girls. And like, Trent has tried to find a way to love them like they're his own too. And that was a special moment. Like, we get to encourage each other's families in that, and we're a village. And that's when the fellowship moments, I feel like that's when it it happens. Like at Boo at the Zoo, I got them, like, let's go. And those are moments that like our kids won't forget either. not just us, but they won't either. So
Yeah, and then your 4-year-old's already saying that they're going to marry another little girl in their group, and it's like, well, okay, life together. We're making it happen.
yeah.
For us, we've got, we're at a different season. Our group is primarily empty nesters. We've got a couple of teenagers, high schoolers that hang around, but, we're there for each other, whether it's, we have one that bought an Airbnb and he's like, hey, can we have life group at our house? I need to film a video. And one of the guys in our group, Super Bobby, is a great videographer. So we hung out at the Swaby's place and filmed a video for their Airbnb. Or Super also likes to buy large purchases without talking to his wife sometimes, and I'm not putting him on blast, but he does. He'll show up, bought a new Corvette today, and it's like, oh no, here we go. Are we all going to have to get together to help push the Corvette up the driveway, or we all go look at it, or help him with a camper that he bought? And Stacy was like, oh, I can help you jump in and fix this floor. And it was kind of a fun thing to celebrate the good, the bad, the ugly. They'll come to Ryman's concerts or shows, and we'll all just support each other in the different things, whether it's our kids and plays or whatever it might be.
A lot of our groups are not from this area. We have a lot of different people who are transplanted to this area. So just top 2 ideas of fun things that your group can do here in Gallatin, Hendersonville, Nashville, that a local would know that a transplant might not.
If you're staying local, like Philly's on the square up there in Gallatin, get a cheesesteak, a little arcade, ice cream,
Your kids can run around and scream, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's a good one. The playground's a great one too. Our church playground, meeting and having fun on that.
That one too.
It's a little bit cheaper, but it's a great way to just let the kids run wild, and you can actually enjoy each other's company at the picnic tables or something.
I think, we do this when we bring people in from out of town. We had a guest stay at our house, and the square in Gallatin is a great place to eat, shop, see all the local stuff. But, there's a lot of good entertainment around here. I know the Lincoln does the Sunday night listening room out there. You can hear some music out there, or, the Thursday nights on the square in Gallatin, or whatever it is, First Thursday, or can't remember which one it is. But it's a lot to do, and you can't go wrong with Fifth and Broad for a group lunch after church on a Sunday. You've got lots of options.
Lunch.
Yeah, I wouldn't go on Broadway at night, but lunch on a Sunday afternoon at Fifth and Broad, it's a good spot.
I will say, several years ago, our group went and played bingo. We found a place to go play bingo together, left the kids at home, and that was fun. Something that you don't typically do on a normal basis, and that was kind of fun.
I am a transplant, so all of this is new to me. Our group likes to do nights in. Honestly, we've done movie nights. We'll do one of our favorite is PowerPoint night. And so after coming back together, having a huge break, we'll do a PowerPoint night. It is catch up on life, tell me what's been going on, or we'll even, we did one night where it was what's something you're super interested in. And so somebody did the history of Disney. Another one did rating Disney princes that I would marry. Just goofy stuff. It's probably one of the most fun things our group has ever done together. And then we just do the normal dinner out or bowling, or walking on the square is always a fun one. But I would say our nights in are definitely more memorable than our nights out.
That's cool. Well, now we want to throw it to your group to let you talk about these 3 purposes of worship, discipleship, and fellowship, and talk about what your experience has been with them in groups past, and ways your group can experience these 3 purposes together moving forward. So thank you for being with us, and next week we'll talk about the other 2 purposes, ministry and evangelism. Thanks.